So Udayan, we talked about strengths, we talked about weaknesses, and actually we touched upon some of the things that India could do. That leads us to, further discuss what are the opportunities that India has, in the industry and the government has in terms of building up the pharmaceutical sector from India.
So how I put it is that in terms of opportunities, even sky is not the limit as far as India is concerned, primarily because we are present in some way or the other in almost all the stages of the pharma value chain. So
Right.
if you talk of even the advanced ones like NCEs, uh, new drug delivery systems, NDDS, biosimilars, or research in latest kind of drug discovery systems, targeted drug deliveries, etc. So we have started dabbling almost in everything. When it comes to the adjacencies like instrumentation required or equipments required for pharma industry, even there we have started stepping in, although we are still very far away, but we are already there. So the opportunity is to build on each of these, decide on the priority, and then build on this. One of the things which we have been constantly practicing ourselves is that you have to be agile, you have to communicate, and you must collaborate. So if you think that XYZ country is your enemy, you actually will not survive because you'll be busy just trying to fight it out with them. Rather than you should try and build on their strengths. And I've spoken about this earlier also. So now we have to start looking at other places also. And those are the opportunities. One of the big opportunities which came up last year, and especially at the beginning of this year, was the Quad initiative. Now, it's the start of something which is very exciting. It doesn't mean that we are going to show our thumb to China, but it does show that probably the Americans and the Japanese
and Australians, right?
And the Australians are taking very serious cognizance of India and its capabilities. So if you really look at it, the actual work under the Quad vaccine initiative is going to be done in India.
Right.
The funding will come from Japan or from USA. The logistic support in Asia Pac will come from Australia, but actually the production of the vaccine, the development of the vaccine will all be done in India. And that's something I think we should all actually stand up and clap because of this initiative. But what I mean is that this is just one initiative. There are many such initiatives. I mean, you have Siemens selling all the most modern diagnostic equipments in India.
Right.
You have the world's top diagnostic companies selling products in India. Right. And you have products now for diagnosing anything and everything, almost all the identified diseases, and they're available at a cost. Now, the opportunity lies therein that why is it that that reagent cannot be made, that particular protein chain cannot be made in India or developed in India in collaboration with maybe the originator. The originator may be from Russia, maybe from Turkey, maybe from Germany, from anywhere. But that's where the key thing lies. And I think Indian companies have always been very sharp at it, and now they're opened their eyes to it. We are collaborating, we are talking, and I think a lot of this will come about in the next few years. And that's why you see that while it has taken us almost about 50, 60 years to reach this level of $40 billion, for us to cross the Rubicon of $100 billion is not going to take another 50 years. It's going to take maybe just about 10, 15 years at most. And I don't even anticipate it will take that long if we get our act right. So that is
one of the things related to Quad initiative, just to get your perspective on that, is that across many industry sectors, right? Many countries, many multinationals, global giants in many industries are de-risking their supply chain from China. That is, in a sense, they do China plus one. Right. So based on the strengths that you talked about, so we have an opportunity to be that in the pharma sector. Is that correct or not? And then, is that how strong is that a possibility?
It is partially correct, Venkat. Initially, when the lockdown started, and sometimes actually in January, as they say, things really became very bad because China went into a very severe lockdown and there were no shipments taking place from there. And as a result, what happened is that the whole world kind of bunkered down. Whatever supplies they had. So India, for example, immediately said, we are not going to export anymore for some time. So whether it was hydrochloroquine sulfate or whether it was paracetamol or metformin, we just immediately went into a kind of a knee-jerk reaction and said nothing to be exported till the supply chains open up again. So what this led to was what is known as the Supply Chain Resilience Initiative. So Quad, if you see, actually is nothing but part of US and Japan's supply chain SCRI, the SCR initiative. Now, similar processes have taken place across the world. So you have Germany, which has decided that is going to support its local industry with 12 billion euros of funds. Poland, $2.5 billion of funds, 2.5 billion euros of fund. Spain, similar amount. Italy, double that amount. UK, France, everybody around, especially the European Union, which is a very important market for India, is going into that kind of. Japan, $2.2 billion only to relocate their industries from China back to Japan. So this is a huge opportunity for India to step in, because India is, along with China, it was always a very big supplier of key raw materials, etc., to Japan. Japan is a very typical market. They still won't, they will trust a $60 per kg of paracetamol versus a $7.50 per kg of paracetamol supplied by India. So they will have a local manufacturer which will be making it at $60, or Orion from Finland making it at $65. They will buy that, but they will not buy it from India immediately, because it is nothing to do with the Japanese industry or the diet or the policies of the diet. It is all to do with the customer in Japan. It's their culture. So what the Japanese industry usually does is they get into collaboration with Indian companies. So we have almost all the big Indian companies with offices there. Transfer of technology is taking place. Partially the product is made in India, the final stage is made in Japan, etc., etc., etc. So these kind of collaborations are really, really opening up. And in the last 6 months, even a small company like mine, I'm a mid-sized company. I'm not a giant pharma. We have had approaches from almost all the big companies. And we have been also hearing that all of them wish to de-risk their supply chain. In fact, some of those companies have gone to the other extreme. Like, for example, Sanofi, I was reading a paper, says that in the coming 5 years, they are going to stop buying anything, not just from China, but also from India. And this is the key thing is that they don't want the supply chain to be very long. So I was talking to the CFO of this particular company, and one of the things which he came across was that it's similar to what happened in the case of the siege of Moscow, and why Napoleon lost out was because of the huge. Why Hitler lost out was because of the huge, very long supply chain. So this is what they don't want to face. So the opportunity now for India is to actually invest in these countries. So that is what is prompting companies even like us to step out. And in fact, we are thinking ourselves of doing some investments in one of these European countries, so that we take our strengths from here and at the same time provide a supply chain alternative to our customers in the European Union by being closer to them.
Right. So apart from the supply chain things that we have discussed in greater detail, almost every sector is now talking about artificial intelligence. And then, even in drug discovery, there have been a lot of, new stories about like how cutting edge techniques have helped new drug discovery, so is there some area, something that being done in India? What should India do? Is that an opportunity for Indian pharma?
It's a brilliant aspect, Venkat, which you have brought up. And in fact, that's one area which should be of great focus for Indian industry. I want to give you a small example of how things are moving along in the world and how fast they're moving along. So all over last year, there was this huge thing about COVID diagnostic kits. Now, diagnostic kits is something which is a very important part of the pharma chain. It is a
Right.
product. It is actually a pharma product because it helps you discover. So very quickly along the way, many companies in India and also, of course, in various other countries started thinking that why is an RT-PCR test taking 24 hours to get the result? Why can't we get the results in 4 hours? The reason is that the bottleneck seemed to be that there is a glass slide which has 96 wells in which the microassays are made and 2 assays for each patient just to ensure that there is fallback this thing, and 48 tests to be done together, minimum of at least 25 to 30 patients for each test. And that's why they had to wait for the samples to be collected.
Right.
So now the pressure from the industry and from the doctors, etc., is I had a chat with a doctor to whom we are now trying to sell something which we are buying from Europe. We are getting into collaboration with a European company for that. It's a diagnostic kit for a very advanced level of women's health, endometriosis. And the doctor was telling me, this doctor in Bombay was explaining to me, Udayan, this kit is good, but there is no USP. Get me a kit where the woman comes to my clinic and I'm ready to test it on one single person. And don't just give me the yes or no answer that whether she's suffering from this disease or not. I also want to know the intensity of the disease so that I can actually give personalized. So this is the level to which, and I mean, this is of course thanks to the medical education level in India, because we have, I'm sure all of you are aware of it. We have excellent doctors also, an excellent hospital clinic.
Yeah, the good use of AI is to have
Yeah.
prescriptive.
So this
right?
is just one aspect of it. The second aspect, of course, is, you know, the most prevalent diseases in the world today are oncology, some of the lifestyle diseases, and one disease which most of the world has been ignoring for many years now are diseases of the bronchial tract, what is known as COPD, the congestive obstructive pulmonary diseases category of products, asthma, bronchial infections, pneumonia, etc., etc. And it is extremely prevalent. It is now there in every part of the world. It was largely being ignored. Now these have come about. So in this, till now, the world was moving more with either single medicines in those typical nebulizers or inhalers, the pump type of it. Right. Then came those disc type of things with combinations. Even that, they were just single dosages being given by the original patent holders. So that's one area where there are many Indian companies are already working, because India is one of the largest sufferers from this particular malady, COPD. Right. Then again, in case of oncological. So there are a lot of artificial intelligence tools now available, which Indian research scientists are working on to quickly screen the possible candidates for treatment, whether it is a biomolecule or whether it is a typical chemical molecule. So there is a lot of tools now available, and correct application and usage of these is a huge opportunity. I mean, not just the development of the tools, which could be a part of the next generation of ITES services, which Indian companies could develop, Tata Consultancy and all these people, specialized artificial intelligence tools for drug discovery, predictive technologies for developing predictive techniques for certain kinds of diseases. So those are the opportunities.
So linking it back to what you said in the previous discussions on weaknesses and the kind of facilities India should set up, are there kind of, can you link this, with kind of facilities that we should have to support drug discovery, drug delivery, and so on? What should we do? What should India do?
See, we have now several, there are certain companies, and Dr. Reddy is just to name one, who have dedicated research foundations. So almost all the big Indian drug companies are now dedicating a lot of their funds towards development, drug discovery. And as I said, that probably by the next year, we should happily be seeing the first wholly developed Indian drug getting approval. The important aspect is that the speed is only going to build up. And therefore, what will happen is India has always been a very Me Too kind of an economy. So if Ranbaxy has done it, somebody else did it, somebody else did it. So there was a time when there were only 3 units in India which were qualified for supplies to US FDA. Today, we are the highest number of US FDA approved units for supplies. This is despite the fact that in the last 2 years, many units have been, there is an import ban against many of these units. Even then, we are 100 plus units, and China is at 28. So this is something which I think is a huge opportunity for India, because drug discovery is becoming now, Indian companies are becoming more and more conversant with this whole aspect of drug discovery. Having easy access to this, this requires very deep pockets, and therefore government really needs to look at it more like an infrastructure building, health infrastructure, rather than just look at it at helping one industry. Because at the end of it, it will be 1.4 billion Indians also who will benefit from new drugs.
So what should they do? Like central research organizations or something like that?
I think CSIR, etc., are now slowly, I believe there is revamping, etc., being planned. As I said, there are more NIPERs being opened, and these knowledge parks are coming up. And the design of the knowledge parks will determine a lot of it, because it's not just about using artificial intelligence for drug discovery, but also for doing process instrumentation, for better quality drug delivery systems, etc. So as I said, the opportunities are anything which you pick up on the value chain, there is an opportunity. Green chemistry, if you just talk of basic intermediates, now you can either make chemicals in the same old way as they were traditionally being made, or move towards enzymatic chemistry, green chemistry, reduce the pollution load. So for maybe the industry, the chemical and the basic industry, basic intermediates industry, that is the opportunity. For us, the industry is more, picking up sharper molecules from the drug discovery system using artificial intelligence. And these tools are now becoming more and more and more. There's this concept of deep knowledge, artificial intelligence, where, data kind of self-sustains. So whatever you learn, you put it back into the software, and then it reprocesses it.
It learns itself also, right? It has a machine learning.
So that it shortens your time period. If the 10-year period of drug discovery is expected, that it will become only 2 or 3 years. Maybe we are far away from it, but those are the opportunities. And I think India has the scientific brains and the technical expertise.
But you need now the willpower and the support from government and the private sector players to move forward.
Yeah, because if you talk in terms of R&D investment, we are sadly behind.
Right.
The largest Indian company doing investment in R&D is in the range of about 250, 300 million US dollars. My company does barely about $1 million US dollars.
Right.
We are doing, on an average, we do about 8%, 7 to 8% of our gross revenue as this, whereas it has to be much more than that, much more.
Right. So let's take that forward, that discussion forward. So some of the points that you have made also point to some of the threats that could be looming at large in the for the Indian pharma sector. So like you said, that some of these countries, like you gave the example of companies too, like Sanofi, and you talked about Germany, Poland, etc. Looking to set up near shore, near home, or inside the country itself. Setting up the capabilities and so on. So is that one of the major threats that you're looking at? What are the other threats when countries and companies are looking, multinationals are looking to build more self-reliance, more near-shore facilities?
So there are 3 major risks, and this is apart from the risk which was caused by this unfortunate pandemic of COVID, which we foresee as constantly happening, which industry keeps on monitoring.
Right.
The large countries which buy pharmaceutical products, which don't have enough of their own manufacturing capacity, are tracts of Latin America, are the whole African continent, because there there is some development in the Maghreb countries and the North African region like Egypt, Algeria, etc. And these are big countries like Nigeria, Egypt. But even then, they're barely catering to their population, just 2 or 3% of production as compared to what is required. They have been undergoing tremendous amount of upheavals, whether it is in terms of political, whether it is currency or anything. And the same goes for many countries which were plotted as being among the top 5 countries in the emerging markets. So for example, Algeria, for example, Turkey, for example, Mexico. Last year, Turkey has gone through a bloodbath as far as their currency is concerned.
Absolutely. Even now, right? Again.
Yeah.
I mean, 15% draft with the drop
in
with
the drop in the
banker,
in the US dollar
the
versus
banker being losing his job,
being
the
changed,
central banker.
The central banker being changed. Similarly, it happened in the case of Mexico when Trump came about with his sanctions, etc. That I'll put up a wall, I'll do this, I will do that, and the Mexican peso went for a
toss.
Our cricket language went for a sixer. Now these emerging markets suffered, and this is a risk which only industry which is dealing directly with them, for whom it is an important market, they monitor. So we monitored. Brazil suffered, Algeria suffered, Egypt suffered, Iran suffered hugely, Turkey suffered, Mexico suffered. So this is a geopolitical risk, it's a threat which is constantly there, and we must do this. The second risk, as you very rightly put it, is that this supply chain disruption really put the Europeans and the Americans and the Japanese into a inward self-reliant kind of. But fortunately for all of them, good sense prevailed. And it does seem that the risk perception of India as compared to China is far lesser. India is considered as a better partner, because even in the past, when some the price of some product has shot up tremendously, Indian suppliers have kept their cool and maintained contractual obligations and supplied at the same rate, etc. One very big threat which could kind of emerge, I would say, which is something for us to see, and I have spoken about it indirectly during the previous things which I spoke about, is that see what happened in the case of penicillin. We thought when IDPL closed down, there were a couple of other plants. There was one JK Pharmaceutical was running, and there was this couple of small companies, Rajasthan Antibiotics, etc., with small capacities. We were reliant heavily on China. We never actually stopped, whether the government of India, whether it was the large consumers, they never stopped and thinking what is our supply chain threat or the risk to it. So similarly, today the threat which could be looming is in terms of what kind of material of construction is being made available. Whether we are upgrading our skills in terms of manpower to meet the requirements of coming times, whether it is artificial intelligence handling bioinformatics, personalized medicine, medical care, designing of new instruments, etc. Designing of new equipments which require certain, like you need huge bioreactors to be good in fermentation. And to make those bioreactors, you need certain kind of instrumentation, you need certain kind of alloys, you need certain kind of technicians, and of course power, etc. So until we get our act together and start thinking of all these things together, we will miss the boat yet again. And this time it will be a more expensive boat.
Right. So given the points that you were mentioning earlier, in terms of weaknesses and our over dependence on China for many of the pharmaceutical raw materials, one of the things that come to my mind is in the mobile phone and in the industry, the threat that China made when it came to rare earth metals some years back, right? They told the Japanese and some others that, domestic priorities first, and so our rare earths won't be exported, and then the whole industry lost a few heartbeats, right? So my question is there such a possibility? And is that not a threat that the key pharmaceutical raw material inputs, theoretically, it's just geopolitics kind of scenario, discussions, scenario planning. We hope that everybody cooperates. But given that we saw that example in the rare earth metals, can there be a threat of raw material supply choking by any major supplier?
This will go on, but this is a real threat. It does loom on the surface. Maybe, for example, it has been there for a while in lithium. You're aware of it. Lithium batteries are a very large source, and if there are just this one company or two companies which have the sources in place or control the sources, so this has been there for a very long time.
So API, pharma APIs also. There's a
Pharma
possibility.
APIs, fortunately for us, there is no such no particular product which is controlled by one single country, one single thing. There have been monopolies in the past where big companies like, for example, Boehringer Ingelheim or Linia of Switzerland, etc., they bought over whole farmlands, and there were these certain natural extracts which came from those particular plants. But then over a period of time, India, certain parts of Africa, Sudan, etc., with similar tropical environment, they started growing these plants, etc. So these threats were always there, but I don't see too much of that happening because R&D is also keeping pace. So newer and newer materials are being found. So if X is in short supply, already Y, Z are being developed for the same application.
True.
So
I'm not talking about the natural source of supply alone, but if some country can really become the lowest cost supplier, everybody else becomes addicted to that source of supply.
That has already become, I mean, if you see the top antibiotics sold in the world, whether it is the whole series of fluoroquinolones, that is levofloxacin, ofloxacin, norfloxacin series, whether it is the cephalosporins, cefaclor, cefadroxil, cephalexin, etc., whether it is the carbapenems, is the large stage antibiotics, imipenem, meropenem, etc. Penicillin G for metformin, DCDA, the key ingredient comes from China. Penicillin comes from China. All the erythromycin salt comes from China. So it's going to take the world and almost, in fact, India, which is the largest consumer, where I see some relief being available is that China knows that it cannot live without India in certain cases. So for them to build up that kind of reputation is going to take them a bit of a time. For them to come up with us at par on certain antibiotics is going to take them 7, 8, 10 years, because the process itself of getting registered, of getting approved by regulating agencies is long. Secondly, this will also give up Indian industry the grace period required to set up their own backward integration units. So Aurobindo, for example, which was the largest importer of penicillin G, is already talking to the government of India for permission under the new policy to set up a penicillin plant. So, I mean, this is hearsay information. I haven't spoken to the Aurobindo people, but I'm told that this is what is. So there are steps being to mitigate this risk. To mitigate this risk, there are steps being already.
So moving on to some of the look into the future quickly, in a couple of minutes, because some of the things that you have already alluded to, so maybe you could give a wrap around that. You have already spoken about new drug discovery systems using artificial intelligence, so we don't have to revisit that. You also talked about data mining and putting to advantage. What are the couple of other points quickly that you would like to point to for our listener, for our viewers, for listeners to understand what could be the new emerging trends?
So one I mentioned briefly was about diagnostics, because I believe that will become a very big tool in the coming years. Certain diseases, certain women's health diseases in various large tracts of the world, including India, where it is a taboo for women to talk about their gynecological problems. It sometimes takes 10 years, 15 years for the patient to even discover that she has endometriosis, for example. Now, if you could reduce this to 2 or let's say 2 years or even lesser, it makes so much more. It makes so much more sense. Similarly, there is this whole concept of new kind of predictive diagnostic kits or personalized diagnostic kits. Now, today you can measure your sugar at home. So why is it that you can't have a tool which can tell you whether you have a certain biomarker of a certain kind of a cancer? So predictive diagnostic kits which can give you advanced warning or sound you that these are the diseases. So this is one area which is new, which is coming up.
So essentially, this will be self-care, personalized diagnostics, and personalized medicine.
On personalized medicine, self-care. And then there is another important field, which is healthcare has always been about putting the patient first, whether it is the hospital, the service part of it, whether it is the drug delivery part of it. So within drug discovery, new developments are happening. So if you can draw a sample without actually injecting a needle through a mechanism which is now being developed in certain parts of the world called TAP, where you put the device against the skin and it through picofluidics draws a certain amount of lipid or whatever is the mechanism. It's still very hush-hush. Or for example, you have to give somebody an anesthesia and the person is mortally scared of
anesthesia
or a needle. So you give a painless jab through this kind of a technology where the patient doesn't even realize that the doctor is talking to you and suddenly he or she keeps his hand on that particular part of the body and you're injected already. So these are the kind of new things where patient will become the center for. And I mean, our industry is something which is so close to human life. It is about human life. So I think
I get very, very interesting areas that you talked about. I think in addition, if we could do some advances in preventive care also, that will be fabulous.
Preventive care is going to be the big thing. Like sugar detection has become blood pressure detection. Everybody has a kit at home. So I have a feeling that many such diseases you will find these things at home itself, that you can take care of the patient at home.
Wonderful. Then I think it's a very, very positive and upbeat note at which we can bring this discussion to a close. We will definitely call you back and we could have another round of discussion. There are many areas that we have not yet explored. We had a good discussion on the strengths, the weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and a few just a sprinkling peep into, I would say, about the new trends and what are the possibilities which are out there. But definitely we should have another round of discussions, maybe sometime in the future. So thank you very much. Excellent discussion.
Try to share whatever little bit I know of the industry and my field. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining us in yet another episode of MoVeConversations. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Please subscribe to the MoVeConversations YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get notifications of new episodes. Thank you very much. Till I see you in the next episode. Thank you very much. Have a great day.